you playing?
Hello, and welcome to What the Bleep Are You Playing? A podcast where we play a game, many times bad, and tell you why the bleep we played it. I am 00 Sean. This is Shaken Not Thomas. And Licensed to Mason. And we played... .007, Agent Under Fire.
Mason, License to Mason sounds like it's like I give you permission to be Mason. Oh shit, they get transformed.
See, I was thinking more of like a Freemason license. It's like you're in the Freemasons now. Here's your license.
Like a get out of jail card, get out of jail free
Yes.
card, but
Yes.
you
So-
have a get out of Mason card.
Oh jeez,
Oh,
that went a weird way.
007.
So yes, this is our second journey into the world of 007.
And the second time you've picked
And
it,
the second
right?
time I picked it, and I picked this one, and I
This is the one that you thought
this is,
Nightfire
yes,
was,
because,
right?
If turning back the clock a little while ago, this was almost a year ago now, I think. When was?
Nightfire was around Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and so...
Okay, so yeah, very very close to almost a year ago. I had chosen Nightfire because I thought it was the James Bond game that I had as a kid and that I had played as a younger person. It turns out that was not the case, and it was actually this game. But we all agreed at the time that you couldn't fault me for mistaking the two because
Their covers are very similar.
yeah, and this
Covers are similar.
Yeah.
They both have the word fire in them.
They both have the title.
They both have
Final
James
Fantasy.
Bond.
Yeah, and like how long was it between those two games? It wasn't
year.
that long. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a year. So you couldn't fault me for mistaking them. But yes, this was actually the game that we had, and the really interesting thing about it is when I played it as a young person. I'm gonna chalk this up to how young I was at the time. I could not for the life of me get past the first level. Could not for the life of me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to chalk that up with just not being good at video games.
No, but, well, I mean, now I can get past it.
In
but-
fairness, we can just immediately start the conversation of this game off with the default controls on this game are some of the worst controls I have ever played in a shooter.
Because they're meant to emulate GoldenEye's controls.
Yes.
It's
So the
not just
problem
it's,
is
it's not it's meant to do because it's meant to be the one joystick, so it's meant to it's emulating old style first person shooters on the computer and then on the 64. The problem is when you have two joysticks, you don't need to
It
do
doesn't
that.
yeah, it's,
And the controls, I eventually, because I died a bunch the first level, and then I eventually was like, okay, because I went back in there, and the UI in this game is kind of non-existent at times. It's just like, oh, there's just basic menu,
yeah.
and it just has like control layout, and I was like, but where's that where I can change the controller? Oh, you can hit over, and finally I found a good control. And when I found the good controls, which I used, I think the game control number 4 is what I
I
used.
use Type 3.
Legitimately some of the best. I went from some of the worst PlayStation shooter controls I've ever played to some of the absolute best PlayStation shooter controls. It felt so good on that. So I could see as a young kid, if you didn't change the controls, this game. Oof.
the thing about the GoldenEye controls, and this was something we had kind of actually experienced when we played when the three of us and Chris played Nightfire, is that the OG GoldenEye controls are so tuned, so specifically tuned for the N64 controller, which by itself is already such a uniquely weird controller. Yeah. That when you try to translate it to a PlayStation controller, it does
an Xbox with the two joysticks. Yeah,
it does the translation
the logical
isn't
thing
good.
they do is they take the one joystick and then try to split it up among two. But it's so, like, I don't, and maybe there are people out here that are like, nah, you're just a noob and you don't understand how to do the controls. But I'm like, for the life of me, I've always thought that, you know, like, when you're using the left-handed joystick, okay, that should be the one that allows me to look around, and the other one allows my camera, which is what I eventually kind of set it up around to. But it's set up that the left one is look back and forth, and the right one is up and down, and I just kept spinning. I was like, why am I not? The other really dumb thing, look, I beat this game. I honestly don't think this game was very hard. I did play it on the baby setting, so like I'm not gonna pretend like it was a huge accomplishment, but the initial control. You can, when you hit down on the D-pad, it changes your weapons, but I didn't realize that, and it goes from gun to hand, and I thought for the longest time, like, where's my gun? And so, like, I could not find my gun, and so the first, like, 3 or 4 runs through until I changed the controls and realized where everything was, because I went down the elevator in that first level, and I must have hit the and I came down. I was like, did a cutscene happen that I missed, and I don't have my gun now? And you can slap people to death, and I did that. But I was like, you get to the next part, which is like blow up a bunch of people, and I was like, with what? And so I'm trying with my like laser, and I'm like, does that do it? No. Is that going through all of it? Finally, I just started slapping people and just running, and I legitimately got all the way to the submarine without dying, just running.
Wow.
And slapping people. Then I died because a lot of them were still behind me. And I guess while we're saying really dumb, funny things in the beginning of it, the first time I got to the lady and captured, I was like, oh, I can probably get rid of this chain. Forgetting gadgets, which really cool this game. I just used my shotgun to try to blow it off, and it's like, you killed her. And I was like, oh.
I did that too, but it wasn't deliberate.
I was thinking,
it was a misfire.
you know, like the Resident Evil, like if there's a lock, you can blow it off with your gun, even if someone's on it. But it's like, no, this game, and this game, to its credit, this game really, even more than Nightfire. Nightfire wants to be GoldenEye and a shooter. This game really, really wants to be a James Bond game, and it from the beginning is like, you have to use your gadgets, and I absolutely love that about it.
Mm-hmm. We can absolutely get more into the difficulty about this game much later on, but I think it wise to start with sort of development things first, which as we were discussing earlier, there's actually some interesting things about this one.
So yeah, it is developed by, at the time, EA Redwood Studios, which would become Visceral Games, which...
Visceral, they've done quite a few things.
Oh, a ton.
They did Dante's Inferno on the PS3. They did the entire Dead Space series.
Before this, they had been doing the Tiger Woods series, Tiger Woods Golf.
I played one of those games. We should do one of those.
NASCAR Rumble on the PlayStation, which was one of the first NASCAR games I've ever played. Actually, not too bad.
Huh.
They did the Godfather game, and they did like 5 or 6. Yeah, which actually is pretty good. Like it's a solid game.
Yeah, the Godfather game's fine.
Yeah, on the PlayStation 2. Yeah, it was heavily hyped. Didn't live up to the hype, but it's not a bad game. It's 7.5 out of 10. But
there's some interesting stories behind that game, but we'll save it for when we eventually get to that.
And then they also did a bunch of Bond, specifically things like From Russia with Love, Everything or Nothing.
Yeah, they were the Bond developer for a while.
Did they do another? No, they did those 3 Bonds, it looks like. So they had a lot of stuff, and Visceral Studios is kind of a little notorious. I say notorious because they were the studio that when Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney, and LucasArts was dissolved, and EA got the Star Wars license, Visceral Games was the one that was supposed to be making... it was there, but it was going to be one of the pirate games. It was going to start with and legitimately they were one of the things before they canceled the game was they were a little upset because Assassin's Creed Black Flag came out, and they're like, that's our idea.
Ooh,
but Star Wars.
Ouch. Fucker.
Ouch. But yeah, they were in development of that. They had the woman who wrote and created Uncharted.
Oh, it was 1313.
No, she did that, but then when it was canceled, she went on to the other stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, it was Star Wars. Because yeah, 1313 is the one. It's Star Wars Project Ragtag is what it was known as.
It's about to say Star Wars Curse of the Black Pearl.
You best be believing in Jedi, son.
You're
You
not
are
one.
Boom. So, like, it has this was kind of their first step into non-sports games. Like, that's kind of what they had done before it. So you can see that this game, I think part of why the game, honestly, I didn't find super hard. Again, played on baby mode, played on the easiest level, so, it may be difficulty on different things. But a lot of it was because a lot of this game is, I feel like them getting their feet wet and what they're going to do in games in the future and how they're going to make games.
Well, you brought up NASCAR Rumble, and there are car sections of this game, so I'm kind of wondering if there was any translation with that.
I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe some of the people who worked on Need for Speed for EA actually helped them with the development of the vehicle levels. And they feel, especially, it's like the 4th level, it feels like a Need for Speed level.
The first car.
Yeah,
level.
it feels like a Need for Speed level.
But
Means
with
I'm not good at it.
Or gadgets.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the car segments of this, I get to bring up one of my grievances with Bond in this era. It would have been what, mid 2000s.
This was 2001 when it
early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my grievances with early 2000s Bond in the movies, or this game did things with this car. The car that's in this game, it's the BMW Z8. They did things with this car that the movies should have done, and I think if they did do with this car, would have made it the next DB5. I think it had the potential to do that. Instead, in the movie, this car drives like 3 feet backwards, launches a missile, and then gets cut in half by a saw blade, and that's all it does. And I think if they had actually done what they did in this game, which is make it a real Bond car with missiles and gadgets and decked it out and everything, it could have been the next DB5. Because
they should have just based it off of my driving style, which means you're going to run into a tree, forget where the reverse is, back up, shoot a couple of missiles, run into a car. The physics of running into cars are hilarious. It's going to kind of jump backwards, hit a couple of people, and then continue to fire missiles indiscriminately until you finally fire your pulse thing and knock out the vehicle.
Because the thing with the thing with the DB5 and like the DB line of Aston Martin cars,
I am so glad I didn't watch either of you guys play this game. Because from the story, I would have wanted to fucking kill myself.
Look, no one should ever watch Sean play first-person shooters or racing games. I'm bad at
This
both.
combined both.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hell. It's hell
anyways,
for Sean.
So the thing about the DB5 and really the whole DB line of Aston Martin cars at the time is before they became famous in Bond, they weren't really well liked. People thought they were ugly and underpowered and not cool. And then Bond made that car cool. It wouldn't be this like staple of cinematic history if it weren't for Bond. And I think that Bond could have done the same thing for the BMW if they had actually done stuff with it, because that's what people look at this car as. It's an ugly, underpowered travesty, and if they actually did cool things with it in the movies like they do in this game, it wouldn't be seen as that. But anyways, that's Mason's car rant of the week.
Fair enough. I think the
I
interesting
like
thing...
the part where the missile launches and it gets cut in half.
the lizard brain. Ooh.
I know jack shit about cars.
Same.
I like when they go vroom.
This is the two very opposite dynamics. I'm over here giving like a whole TED talk about cars, and Hobbs is like, vroom.
Ka-chow.
So in the development of this game was supposed to be, so the world is not enough, right?
Yeah, the world. Yeah. This was supposed to.
It was supposed to be
Jesus.
the PS2, GameCube, Xbox update of the PlayStation N64 version of World Is Not Enough. And they decided, or EA decided as licensing and different things, that they were going to not do that. Ends up being a kind of its own thing. But they actually had, a lot of the likenesses in the game initially that were then gotten rid of for money reasons. Specifically, the big one is they had John Cleese initially's likeness, and I don't know if they had his voice, but they had his likeness in the game. and they decided to not do that as R is who he was playing.
Yeah, R.
And they ended up not doing that and cutting it. So this game definitely... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, you want to talk about underutilized stuff in the Bond movies. The fact that R got like 1.5 movies is so disappointing.
Yeah.
Because it's John Cleese, and John Cleese is fucking hilarious, so...
Yeah, and they could have utilized it in this game, but they decided not to. There are times where this game, I think the biggest thing for it in the development, that if you want to take anything away from the development, is the studio was, specifically this branch of EA, was kind of learning new style of games. They had a lot of their budget things kind of cut. They had their ideas changed. And the fact that they kind of created and were able to continue to get licensed and be considered such a big studio, especially things like Dead Space later on, is a testament to the skill, because this, we've seen less development hell make worse games. We've talked about games, and they had to go through a lot of stuff, and they still were able to spit out a fairly competent Bond game.
Yeah.
So that is, I think, the biggest thing to take from the development side of this. It was, I don't think it was it was kind of just average scores across the board. I would be really interested to play it on the other systems than the PlayStation 2, but
definitely.
The GameCube actually has the best reviews. Xbox is the lowest, which kind of interesting, but.
The GameCube was the version I played.
Yeah, and I think I'd like to play, again, with the way we've talked about PlayStation 2 and shooters. And how the controller was not as conducive for first-person shooters as, say, the Xbox was. Although it's interesting that the GameCube has the best score, and it is probably the worst controller for first-person shooters.
It's not great.
Considering the way, but I guess maybe depending how they utilize the C-stick and the regular one.
Well, because I'm going to be perfectly honest. Like I said, I played the GameCube version, and I thought it controlled very well.
Yeah.
But that's also because this doesn't really play like an average shooter for the time. So
I bet the gadgets honestly mapped the controller of the GameCube work really well.
Yeah. The only problem I had is it is the D-pad. And this is not a problem with the game, but I'm a fat fuck, and I got fat fuck thumbs. So I kept hitting 2 buttons by accident. So it'd be like, I want my machine gun. You get your glasses. God damn it.
This is why being able to map or being able to find the right control setup, because I never had that problem when I set it up, because I had switching weapon and switching gadgets as L2 and R2.
Oh, see, I didn't like that. I didn't like using the controllers for the weapons.
Which was which was a lot easier. Again, I don't mind. I didn't mind initially with the initial controls with X being fire. I didn't, but I mapped it to being fire up on the top, all those sort of things. Your action button was circle, triangle, jump, and I was like, it made it a lot easier for me, and I thought a lot more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, the thing for me is every other Bond game basically in this generation uses the D-pad for weapon switching.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I play a Bond game, that is my mindset. So that's why I was like, I want it to be the D-pad.
A lot of games use the D-pad as the weapon switching. That's even a modern thing now.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially if you have 17 weapons, it's it just makes it easier.
So while we're getting into the gameplay, so both of you guys finish
this
game, right? I can finally get into why I didn't end up completing.
I was about to ask you. All right, how far did you get, Mason?
I got to mission 5. There are 12 missions total, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I got to mission 5.
Cold reception.
Okay,
first 4 missions.
So you beat you got through the first car mission.
Yes.
Okay.
First 4 missions are perfectly fine. They're not like walk in the park easy. They're not Dark Souls difficult. We'll put it that way. But then I got to level 5, and when I say the difficulty spike, when I got to this part was as high as goddamn Mount Everest. I mean it. It was insane, the difficulty spike that came from this, and I part of it maybe because I will admit I am bad at I'm bad at first person shooters. I'm bad at them. But I'm also going to chalk most of this up to the level itself being difficult. And part of it is because for some reason in this level they decided to bring up the amount of hits it takes to kill enemies up. They did that. They increased because there's like an alarm system that like the enemies can go to, and like a ton of enemies start coming up, so they decide to increase the number of enemies that show up.
Did you just stop the guy before he hit the alarm?
I couldn't. It wouldn't let me kill him. I tried to shoot him multiple times and he wouldn't die.
I ran up and slapped him.
Did you literally just go to the other fucking door?
Yeah, you can do opposite. Yeah, like the you're talking about when the first thing comes in and like he's running towards there. I ran up to him and just slapped him and killed him.
I can with one slap?
Yes.
What the hell?
And the other time I died,
done?
that was the first time. And the second time I went through, I just shot him once. The game, especially in the early mode, has auto aim assist on it. It like this game, like I never felt a difficulty spike. Yeah, some of the later levels, you know.
Hold on. Were you going for headshots?
Sometimes.
Because that may have been the difference. Because headshot.
I'm bad at first-person shooters, Mason. I don't aim well, so
yeah, but
that's why auto assist was great, because I'd be aiming over here, and it's like, do you mean to aim over here at his stomach? Yes, that's exactly what I'm meaning.
See, because what I did with that level is I didn't fight the guy at the beginning.
Yeah.
I went over, I pressed the button on the left console, and I just went that way.
That's what I did too. I would try to go the stealth route every time. But as soon as you mess up and they hit the alarm, all hell breaks loose, and I died.
Did you get like good weapons early? Like, did you pick up the like in the levels?
Yeah,
like,
you can literally.
Did you get the rocket?
You can use karate chop action, knock the guy out, steal his deagle, and
yeah.
Well, like you're given the golden gun right at the beginning, which I'm pretty sure they nerfed for this game. Maybe I might be wrong on that.
It's just a regular pistol.
Yeah, your regular pistol. Yeah, I pistol's really powerful.
I don't know.
I a lot of times was like, oh, I'm gonna go with other things. I end up just going pistoling through things.
I don't know. I felt like it was kind of. It felt like the Family Guy problem where I was taking so many shots to kill them, and it ended up that because of like the way I play these games, I focus so much on killing one person that everyone else is shooting at me at the same time, and it was very. That level was incredibly difficult for me. I must have tried to replay that level at least 10 times, and it got so frustrating that it was like, I'm done. I stop.
This is wild to me because I'm really bad at first-person shooters. I'm never going to pretend like I'm good at them. But now the last two first-person shooters we played, Call of Duty and this, I've beaten, and Mason's given up early.
I don't really have the type of tenacity that some gamers have when it comes to like difficult levels. There's like, I feel like there's so like the people who play Dark Souls, for example, who get their ass handed to them on a platter 30 times and keep going. I'm not really that type of person. If I get frustrated, I'm just like, I could just stop and not be frustrated anymore, and that's it.
I'm so confused.
It's not hard.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm sitting here.
It's literally, oh my god, I don't understand.
I legitimately.
I'm not trying to be like, lol, bitch, but like.
I'm bad at shooters, Mason, and I didn't die. And after I got the control setup I wanted, I didn't die in a shooting level till near the end.
Because like, it was genuinely like.
I'm like, oh, one shot kill, 2-shot kill.
I mean, did you find the damn armor?
Did you pick up armor? Did you?
Well, not at first. I had to look up a walkthrough to figure out where the armor was.
You had to look up a walkthrough to figure out the armor. It's right there.
I was literally going to talk about when we got to it was like, usually I get lost in games like these, but anytime you like anywhere you go, they're like, someone will literally be like, James, you need to go to the left. And I'm like, okay. And I just start walking like, James, you need to go straight. Okay. I was like, this is like.
Did you have the damn TV on mute?
No. I mean, admittedly, I was playing at night and I didn't want to wake any of
I
them, so I
wonder-
had the volume down a little bit,
I
but I could still hear it.
wonder if Mason accidentally bumped the
Did
difficulty
Yeah,
up.
was it like, oh, we played on Operative. What did you play on 007? Well,
Because I can imagine, because I didn't get a chance to really try the higher level. But yeah, sitting here, it's like, Thomas and I are like, what an easy breezy game. And Mason's like, this was the death of me.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It was just very, very frustrating for me and difficult, and
And don't get me wrong,
I
I
don't know.
died a ton in the car levels because car levels. And, I'm not good at a lot of especially the faster regular cars go in levels. I'm like, cool. I crash into everything.
See, the car level was a little bit difficult for me to get off the bat, mainly because I've been playing a lot of modern racing games, and I'm used to the racing games that I play. They're not really realistic, but they're pretty realistic. So when I go from that to this, where I'm driving a real ass looking car, and it drives like a go-kart, that was a little bit of a learning curve, but I got the hang of it eventually.
See, I only died on 2 levels in this game. I died on the final rail shooter level.
Yeah, that
And
was actually a little challenging at times.
it's because I was a fucking dumbass. Because, okay, the final rail shooter level is you get on this little cart thing, like this little thing that
It's
zooms
the little
you.
subway thing.
This little subway
yeah.
thing that zooms you along. And overall, I thought the stage was actually pretty fun.
I loved that stage.
I also played on easy mode because I'm a little bitch. I'm a little bitch boy. But I get to the end, and I'm like, what the hell do I do to shoot these things? And I didn't know. I tried my gun, because that was the only weapon I had ammo for. And I'm like, well, what the hell do I do? And I died. I had to start the whole level over again. And I did that. I got to the end, and I realized I forgot to see that I picked up a goddamn rocket launcher to use, and I was like, I'm a fucking
They
idiot.
don't always. I will say sometimes they weren't always clear with what weapons you'd pick up, and I wouldn't realize. And then I'd start cycling. I'd go through because I was looking. I was like, I need my shotgun. I'm like, I have that weapon and that weapon. I rarely had issues with ammo. Maybe just the way anything. Like most of the time, I'm like, sometimes the machine gun. I would run out with the machine guns because I just spray in bullets. But I almost always had my pistol. Had a shot or two. The shotgun didn't hold very much, but God, it's overpowered.
Well, it's
Yeah.
a shotgun.
There was the sniper rifle, or I guess the rifle on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. Depending on the first person shooter, I'm okay with rifles. Whatever. I love the rocket launcher in this game.
It's pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet.
And Dom has mentioned that about rail. There are different types of level. You have your kind of normal first-person shooter levels. You have your car levels where you're going around, and then you have your rail shooter levels where you're in the car, but you're not driving the car. And basically, you are just having to. They'll be like, James, there's someone in front of me. James, there's someone behind, and you just have to keep doing stuff up. And those levels were so fun.
They were pretty satisfying.
Those levels are one half of my favorite stage in the game. So, but first off, the second level I died at, that was the final level. I died a good chunk in the final level, and that was because that was when it started to get there were sniper rifles that could take off half my health with a couple shots, and I was like, nuts.
Yeah, that one and yeah. When you did, the thing that I got stuck on in those last levels specifically, that is I could never figure out where. I was like, and I got shot. Where did? Because a lot of times I'd be like, I took a little bit of damage. Okay, I'll look around. I'll find him. Things like that. I could not find them for a little bit of time, and so means they were good snipers.
I was going to say, it's almost like they're good at their job.
Yeah,
It did lead to a very funny moment in the final level because you can take this zip line down to this building where there's a little hatch on the roof, and these guys, I had 5 guys at the bottom just blasting at me with AK-47s, SMGs, all this stuff. So my response was I looked down and Bond pulled out a grenade, dropped it like Looney Tunes, just blew all 5 of them up.
This game, a lot of it was unintentional because it's just some of it for the time. I laughed way too much in this game. A lot of it's unintentional, but also some of the dialogue is actually funny.
Yeah.
Also, the amount of times that James Bond enters in a room and there's a naked lady, it just keeps happening over and over. And there is a sex
First
scene.
world problems.
There is a sex scene in this game.
Well, it's
there
almost
is?
like it's Bond.
Yeah. You have.
Oh man, I should have kept playing.
It's near the end. You meet up with the lady, and if you, I think you had to get an item. Because I only read about it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think you have to get.
You have to get an
I don't
item
think I got it.
because I was reading up on it and things like that. But yeah, near the end you meet the lady. But if you have the right item, like she'll be like, I can make it up to you, and like she's like getting on top of him, and then it fades to black, and it's like, oh.
How funny would it have been if it was like a God of War style minigame?
There's the one where you get into the house and there's the woman in the shower, and then it's like, how do you like the holographic?
Yeah, that was my favorite gag in the game, where there's a woman in the shower and she's bathing, and then she vanishes away, and it's R behind the shower, and he's like, "Do you like my new holographic projection system, 007?" I figured I'd turn it to something that would get your attention.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many.
Used my horniness against me.
So many times you'll walk into a room and there's a woman changing, or there's a woman in the shower, or there's like, I was like, wow, they really leaned into the James Bondness of James Bond in this.
It's just like, I'm sorry, this happens to me so many
I
times.
think one of my favorite ones was in that subway level, where normally Bond would just throw someone out of the subway car to get in there. But instead, because it's a woman, he offers her his hand really gently.
And he's like, I'll be taking that now, thank you.
And she's just perfectly fine with it, because I guess her boss is a dick.
Yeah. There's the fake death before you get the final boss. Earlier, he falls into the pit, and you think you killed him, and then at the end, he's like, haha. And the lady, the bad guy, she's like, oh, you killed his clone, and now he's mad at you, and he's back.
Because the whole plot is about cloning, which actually one of my favorite reveals in the plot of this game is in the third level. Because in the third level, you're stealthing around, you're figuring out all this info, and it's like, oh, he's been tortured. This guy's been tortured to death. You turn around, and he's right there holding a gun, and you're instantly like, what the fuck?
It's like, yes, Bond, that is me, and he is me, and this is a gun.
There was also the shock value of the scene after you do the first railgun, and you get there, and you're sitting there and you're talking to the lady who is driving there, and this limousine pulls up and just kills her.
Yeah, it blows the fuck out of this.
Which I was like, what?
Yeah, because you think she's going to be the Bond girl, and it's like, she's dead, Bond, and it's like, oh. Well, which I think one of my favorite, I watch this channel that's exclusively like spy stuff. It used to be exclusively Bond stuff, but you run out.
Eventually. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but eventually.
He started just doing like kind of any random spy series, kind of action series. But when he reviewed Agent Under Fire, the girl dies, and then he goes, we didn't even get a sex scene with her. It's like, that's Bond 101. You get the sex and then you die.
That's an interesting thing. How many times has the Bond girl died?
There's been a good chunk.
Yeah, there's been a good chunk. Not very often, obviously early, because it's not...
Yeah, the biggest examples are...
Casino Royale, the Bond girl dies.
Yeah, Casino Royale. What's the other one?
Well, his wife dies in Majesty's Secret Service.
Majesty's Secret Service, yes. That's the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, it's not the Bond girl, but one of them does die and live and let die.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, let's put it this way. There's always two Bond girls. One of them dies.
Goldfinger.
Yeah, Goldfinger's another one.
But I think when I'm talking about like the story, the script, this dialogue, actually pretty good. Like, I enjoyed the story. Yeah. I said I laughed a lot, but then there's the unintentional hilarious things, and some of it's because it's a 2001 game that is building off of a PlayStation and 64 game. The graphics, while aren't a lot better at times, but like the models are they feel very early PlayStation.
Yeah.
Late PlayStation, early PS2, which is obviously what it was. But there are some just downright hilarious. First level, there's a sniper or a guy with his gun trained on the woman in the on the sub.
On the submarine, yes.
And no matter what, if you shoot him, slap him, run up, whatever. If you shoot him from a long range, he goes, huh, he'll turn at you, and then he'll just randomly just turn back and go, ah,
and fall
off the back. No matter what you do, it is so funny. There's also, later in the game, there was a bad guy that he came up, like he popped up at me, and I shot him, and he was just like, ugh! And it was so funny when he died. Like, he just got, like, flailed off the screen. There are moments, like, you know, with the cars, they kind of bounce off each other. If you hit people, they kind of just bounce off. Like, the physics
Right.
and with the models in this game lead for a lot of unintentional humor, which I really loved. And maybe I'm revealing my hand for the first question a bit on it, but, like, some of these things that I love about it only are because it is an old style game
Right.
that still works, but doesn't work necessarily the way it was intended, and I love that. So it's something that someone playing it in 2001 would get a different experience than me getting it in 2023, but also both of us 22 years apart would be getting a good experience from it, you know. So
Yeah.
I think that was really, really interesting. Did anybody have any camera issues with the game?
Not really. No, I don't think so. Really, the only issues that I had gameplay wise were with the controls, and I was able to change those later.
Once I figured out the controls, because initially, you know, I was, you know, scribbling down angrily the first play. I'm like, the controls are bad, and because of it, the camera's not very good. Once I figured out the controls and got a control setup that I could play really well, I rarely had problems with the camera. It's actually a pretty decent first-person shooter camera. But I think, you know, I mentioned it earlier, the biggest thing for this game, the gadgets.
With this game, you feel like Bond, arguably even more than Nightfire.
I think more.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I think
love
you feel-
Nightfire, but...
I mean, I feel like you feel a good chunk with Nightfire, and I think Nightfire is a better game than
Yes.
this. But with Agent Under Fire, you really do feel like Bond, and that is with a lot of the gadgets.
The little
like-
laser to cut things.
Yeah.
The grappling hook feels so good.
The grappling hook, the laser, the glasses to see tripwires.
Let's put it this way: Nightfire is the better game, but Agent Under Fire is the better Bond game, the better Bond experience.
I think so. Yeah, I think
that's
this
fair to
Nightfire
say.
feels like Nightfire is a really good first-person shooter that would come out like it. It feels like especially when we played it on the Xbox. It feels like those games. It feels like those great shooters of that era.
Yes.
This feels like a Bond game that just happens to be a pretty decent first-person shooter with it, but the gadgets are so good, and the fact that when you're in the driving levels, you're picking up different gadgets, and I had fun trying some of the gadgets.
My second favorite level in the game is the level where you're infiltrating like the battleship, like the aircraft carrier. And one of my favorite reasons it's one of my favorite levels is because you get the Q remote.
Yes.
And you can like wire it, basically. You can get its frequency to be with the jets. So there's one bit where a bunch of bad guys are shooting at me, but I see this little green blip and I'm like, I click the Q remote, a jet just fires off and the afterburner burns the shit out of all the henchmen and just
Wow.
launches them away.
Which is what is really cool about this game. And that is that you are trying... it's set up for you to be doing cool things. When you hear the Bond theme play, it means you did something really cool, and you got your 007 reward. And, man, it feels good anytime that happens.
feels good
Because
to get
that
you're trying to get a
007.
score. In the end of each level, it gives you a score. It gives you a ranking because you're going to unlock special abilities, the ability to play through it, cheats, basically, for those levels as you unlock it. And... I think none better than there's a level where you're in a tank and you're firing with a minigun. You have a minigun on a tank, and you come around the corner and the camera pulls out and it shows two tanks beneath a bridge and a train going over on top of it. If you've been playing earlier, you immediately recognize those are explosive containers. If you shoot the explosive containers, the train blows up, which blows up the bridge, which falls down and blows up the tanks. Game of the year 2001.
Yeah, and-
that scene, legitimately, I don't think I have been that juiced playing a game as I was when that scene happened and you did it.
When that happens, when you just blow the shit out of them and the Bond theme starts playing, that really does feel like, I'm
Yeah.
in a goddamn Bond movie.
But even just simple things like the game encourages you to try different ways to do things, because there's ways you can afterburner people. When in the racing levels, you'll have your gas that you can shoot up, and you can literally do it at the right times, and cars will spin out, and you'll have the music playing. You have rockets that will do things, and you can cause chain reactions.
the first half of that tank level, there's a car level like that's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite bits is there's this part where you need to pick up this data disk, but there are 2 helicopters on either side of this train tunnel. So what I did is I drifted around to the helicopter that wasn't near it, took it out with missiles while I was drifting, and then just turned the fucking gas on, grabbed the disc, went down onto the train tracks, and then fired a missile up at the helicopter right above me.
Yeah.
And it's like, you feel like Bond in this game.
And the
really
thing
do.
is, because there's so many different ways you can go through the game and do different things, it has replayability. It has, you want to try to get higher scores and you want to do different things. And legitimately, that's just, above all, that's just really good game development. Mm-hmm. Like, when we get to kind of the questions here in a few minutes, there are definitely things that you can nitpick and you can say, and you can be like, well, this game did better, or this, that. I don't think I've played a game that truly encapsulated the Bond experience like this.
Right.
And that is just something that I didn't expect coming from this game. Mm-hmm. Having not played it and just booting it up this last week for the first time, I did not expect to actually be like, wow, this 2001 Bond game that has kind of development hell and went through a lot of stuff and is kind of a slight upgrade port of a PlayStation 1 64 game is giving me this experience. And
Yes.
that is something really cool for this game.
I think it definitely encapsulates that the sort of James Bond experience in a way that I think a lot of later games, especially Legends, especially looking at you Legends, have kind of lost.
Well, the thing about Bond is they're always trying to recapture GoldenEye. That's what they're trying to recapture all the time, because that is the only Bond game that has been a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
GoldenEye it went beyond Bond fans or trying to be Bond. GoldenEye was a game that every 64 owner played at some point. And things like that. So, like, they've been trying to recapture that magic. And I understand that.
Yeah,
but
I wish they wouldn't. As much as I like GoldenEye,
well,
I wish they would sort of lean away from
we
the
talked about that in the
first-person
Nightfire episode, is that in Nightfire, they captured that magic, but gave it a modern shooter spin, and Nightfire rocked.
Yeah.
Nightfire
Nightfire's
rocked,
great.
and so they've done that, but they keep trying to replicate it, when I think sometimes Bond, not to say that you need to not do shooters, because this game was a first-person shooter, and it rocked, the Bond experience, but, like, there's more to James Bond than the pew-pews.
Well, that's
Yes.
Barbara Broccoli, the head, basically, person of the Bond franchise. For the new Bond game that IO Interactive is making. Hopefully. They're still working on that. She basically...
Tune in every time we do a game award or watch anything and be like, hey, are we going to get Bond this year?
No? Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things she criticized with that, especially something like Legends, had too much focus on the gunplay.
Mm-hmm.
So... And that's Barbara Broccoli, the head of Bond, basically saying that.
Look, give me the experience. The thing that this game still doesn't is get the experience of, like, going on the full covert missions at different times. Like, I want to go and play a poker game, I want to go and do a lot. There's a lot more stuff to Bond than the pew-pews, but GoldenEye kind of created what we view as a Bond game, and because it was what it was, they've kind of always tried to recapture that, and I just kind of appreciate that this was not trying to be a GoldenEye clone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
None of us, because I know you can play the multiplayer even just by yourself with AIs. Did anybody try the multiplayer?
I didn't.
No, I didn't.
I didn't
either.
realize
you could do that.
Yeah,
if I did, I probably would.
I didn't get a chance to try it. I should have, but there is multiplayer in this game. There's not much said about it, so I'm going to assume it's not one. And this didn't have online function on any of the systems. It was only local, whereas obviously Nightfire had online and local, and Nightfire was built for multiplayer. I guess maybe in the future, if we ever revisit this game, we'll maybe talk about the multiplayer.
Possibly.
But yeah, on this podcast, we like to ask 2 important questions of every game that we play. The first is, how does this game hold up?
I think it holds up really well.
Yeah, that's where I am.
I think just again, with the amount that you feel like Bond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are there some archaic game elements? Yeah, there's a live system, which is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
There's, there are some really dumb elements.
There's some really dumb early 2000s things, but as I said earlier, a lot of the stuff that maybe what you would say when it came out, you're like, this was a flaw, actually I think is a charm sometimes now. I said, the models back then, I'm sure, even in 2000s, like, it's semi-realistic for that point for PlayStation graphics, but also it is an upgrade on a port built into the Quake system. I think is what it was built into and so like. But a lot of the things that I don't think we would have said that doesn't why it would have been flawed. A lot of those I'm like, nah, that's what makes this charming. That's what makes this game charming. That this game I think has aged incredibly well because of that.
I think that what also helps it to age a little bit better is that it's not tied to a movie.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last wholly original Bond game we got?
Wholly original Bloodstone.
Would it have been Bloodstone? Okay,
I was like, I think it was Bloodstone, yeah.
Which was
2010, I believe.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was 2010 because fucking Thomas goes on a rant about Bond, volume 104,056. 104,056. Yeah, that's math.
Volume, yes.
Where they made the really, 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 really fucking stupid decision to release that and GoldenEye Reloaded on the same day. Why the fuck would you do that? What the fuck do you think is going to sell more, you dumb son of a bitch?
Speaking of attempts to recapture GoldenEye, the attempts at GoldenEye remakes have been...
GoldenEye Reloaded.
They've been attempts.
Rogue Agent.
Christ, that doesn't fucking count. It's a remake of GoldenEye in the same way I'm a remake of Adam. I mean, there is a relation, yes, but I don't think it's that great.
But yeah,
that might be the greatest comparison you've ever made.
Fantastic.
Anyways, back to the original question. I think it's held up fine. It's held up good. I don't think it's held up fantastically, but it's not the worst aged game we've played.
I think if you'd been able to sit down and play through it all and not had weird difficulties.
If God didn't decide, I shall smite Mason today, just fuck him.
If I didn't have such a hard time with Mission 5, I don't know, maybe I'd look at it better, but maybe
Which
I
is
would.
where I think this is going to be a really interesting
knows?
question as we get to question number 2 here. Would you like to see a remake or a reimagining of this game in a modern setting?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think I would. I think I would mainly because of its two defining merits to me: the originality of its story and the amount of gadgets that you have. I think based on those two very strong merits, I think I would definitely try to play this game again.
So what I personally want, and I'm kind of clamoring for this to be honest, I want a trilogy HD remaster or remake, kind of like the Insane Trilogy or Reignited. You don't have to do from the ground up remakes for this. I mean, they're licensed games. I can't imagine you can do ground up.
So kind of like an
remakes
HD remaster.
Yeah, but do Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing in a pack. That's kind of what
basically what I was going to say is give us the PS2, Xbox era Bond games. They don't even have to be you don't have to remake them or even remaster them that much.
Yeah,
you can make them just the slight HD improvement with maybe tweak the controls a little bit because of it.
I don't want an HD remaster or full on remake because you know what they do? They put fucking Daniel Craig and Pierce Brosnan.
No, it'd be whoever's the new Bond.
Yeah,
it'll be Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like that either.
This is the one Bond game that actually does have Idris Elba as Bond.
Yeah, the one.
No, we went all the way back and we resurrected Sean Connery.
They may try.
Well, that's what Russia from Russia with Love did.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I would like to see this game ported more or less. I don't think I want a remake of it. I wouldn't be opposed to it because I think, as I said, the ability to play and really feel Bond would be fine. But I think as a good port of it that still keeps some of the charms and quirks in it, I think actually is what I would like. Whether that's just dropping it on Game Pass or on PlayStation
PS Plus.
Yeah, PS Plus, one of those, or just legitimately releasing a trilogy, like, you know, like a bunch of the games all out, or even, you know, if they just want to, like, I'd like all three, but if you want to do Nightfire and Agent Under Fire as a 2-pack and then whatever, that's fine too.
Do that as the first person shooter Bond.
Because I think I would enjoy. I would like to revisit this game. I would like to sit down and play this game again, the same as like Nightfire. And so like on a modern system, I think they would both be fun. So I'm
in the same.
Yeah, a remake is probably not something I'm clamoring for here. I'm wanting more original stuff to, you know, spend a lot of time on. But like a solid little remastery would be fine with me.
They still make Daniel Craig the Bond in the full-on remakes, but it's just a charred skeleton.
Except it's Daniel Craig from Knives Out now instead of Bond.
What's up, Benoit Blanc?
God, where's the Knives Out game? I'd play that. I would absolutely play that.
It's called the Sherlock Holmes games.
I don't know if I'd play those.
They're good.
They are.
Maybe I will.
But yeah, that is 007, Agent Under Fire. What do you guys think? You guys played this game? Did you play it back in the day, or is it something you've picked up recently? Well, you can let us know by sending us an email to bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Send us your comments, your questions, whatever else, to bleepyouplaying@gmail.com. Or, if you'd like to tell us to play a game, maybe a Bond game, maybe you have a twisted sense and you're like, I want you to play Rogue Agent on the Nintendo DS. Well, if you want us to do that...
You're the only one who keeps suggesting that.
You know what? If you have a twisted sense of
I want you to play James Bond 007 on Game Boy.
You can tell us to play one of them just by subscribing on our Patreon, patreon.com/whatthebleep. We have our super bleep head tier for $15 a month. You can tell us to play a game, and we'll play it and then tell you why we played it. That's $15 a month over on patreon.com/whatthebleep. And we'll be back to show off our really good camera skills.
I liked it.